and we cannot do so. We don't usually do so. I have three brief points to make. There's people store value in real estate, but how can you use or invest the money? There are not a diversified set of investment, and you cannot even do mortgage. Of course, we should exert, or we should all work together with the public sector and the private sector. So the government has to fish for solutions from the river of the private sector. I love this quote. So the government will not be able to support everything, but the government should be able to select what would be of benefit to the whole country. And yes, we need institutional reform, and this includes good governance and administrative restructuring. I also want to restructure the regulator part, to restructure the number of ministries, to restructure the coordination among ministries. So we really look forward to such a reform. Now I'd like to open the floor up for questions. I'm very happy and pleased to be here in this rich and insightful meeting. I'm happy that Saif and Amina are here, because I remember back then when we started to work on this topic a while ago. Of course, this dialogue is right to the point. People provided examples, real and practical examples on the ground. How can these reports inform public policies? Based on the excellent interventions I followed up on with, this is the main point, but there is a missing link as well. We have 12 pillars with 130 variables. Who is responsible for that? If we want to change this or that, then whom should we contact? When I worked on doing business in 2006, if I remember correctly, 2005 and 2006. So we studied the different indicators, and we said this part has to do with the customs authority, and then we even narrowed down which department in the customs authority. So as Mr. Khalid said, details should be taken into consideration, and this is a missing link when it comes to designing public policies. Whenever there's something, there is a problematic issue in industry, we go to the Ministry of Industry. But this shouldn't be the case. With all due respect to the ministries, these people are causing the trouble and cannot provide the solution. It's easy to identify the problems. You diagnosed a set of problems. But when it comes to solving, we assign 500 bodies to solve the issue. And there is no one leader. Based on my very humble experience, I can tell you that we are going through a vicious circle, and we are being overwhelmed by the details. Is the new administrative capital or is the new Alamein city is or should get the focus? Everyone is trying to score a point. Good, congrats. But what is the bottom line, or what is the conclusion, or how can we inform the public policies? So I propose the following. This good report refers to a set of real problems. We need to focus on these problems and then ask, how can we solve these problems? Can we assign the competitive council to solve this? Because in intercontinental we once had a meeting of six ministers. Or should we form a high level technical committee bringing together Khalid and Ahmed and the likes? But the way to solve things is very unique. I just came back from Singapore and I was happy because I learned a lot, but I was disappointed at the very same time because their approach is simple, but our approach is not working. The media is referring to a growth rate of 8% in 2020 or 2021. Okay. But can you realize this number building on the existing system? You have, yes, you might get this number superficially from real estate sector, from speculations in the stock market. But can you employ the human capital to achieve this number? Impossible. By 2020, and based on the WEF, 25% of the jobs will disappear or will not be in high demand. These jobs happen to be in the government sector or in the public sector. So we need to discuss these issues. Second, Tariq referred to the future of work, and we worked in the ILO on that topic in detail. The job market will be different, will be very different. The gig economy is controlling everything now. I don't want to speak for long, but this is the crux of the development approach in this country. The current approach will lead to nothing and will not let us address the deficiencies. We need to have a different perspective when it comes to the formulation of public policies. So, okay, who is the decision maker? Who thinks? Who designs policies? What is the structure of the mechanism? I'm sorry, the speaker is not holding up microphone. So, there they have an economic council. This council brings together well qualified people and international public figures. They are not very sensitive when it comes to asking people from abroad. So this council brings together Nobel laureates. I'm responding to Mr. Tariq's question. So this council defines the development objectives in Singapore for the coming 5 years. But here is the difference. So they say the development rate or the growth rate will be X. How can we do so? Through X, Y, and Z. What are the tools and resources to do so? And of course, education comes first. So education management is assigned to the Economic Council, but not to the Ministry of Education. Yes, the Ministry of Education is responsible for assessment or for curriculum design. As for fiscal and monetary policies, it's a different world. It's a parallel world. We do not have a fiscal or monetary policy. Yes, even social justice is realized in Singapore impressively. Yes, this is the mechanism. And of course, there is a policy for a reward and punishment. It's built in the system. I was surprised when I visited the port. The port is operated by 4 persons, and this port is responsible for 50% of the international shipping lines all over the world. So we need to move outside our bubble. We shouldn't be overwhelmed by the details. I can blame Mr. Ahmed, I can blame Dr. Jihan, so and so. But this is not the way out. We need a development strategy that is very detailed, similar to the one I witnessed in Singapore. I agree with Mr. Hani. This report is a KPI, but for whom? For the Prime Minister? Who holds the Prime Minister accountable? Please send this report to the Parliament, because this is our collective General Assembly. The Parliament should discuss this report along with the budget, because these are the only people to hold the Prime Minister accountable against these KPIs. And this discussion should be done in a public hearing to raise the awareness of all the citizens. Thank you. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Any other comments, questions? Ahmed Safi. My concern is that in 2017, 2018, and 2019, the improvement is not based on efforts or development, but rather on population increase, for example. But now, let me ask you what to do next. What can we do now? Is the car we are driving with a speed of 30 kilometers an hour should be changed to drive with 100 kilometers an hour? It's a simile or an analogy to the point he wants to make. Peace be upon you. May I am an assistant lecturer in the National Institute of Planning. The main concept here through which we can realize development is agility. Agility. To be able to take decisions fast. Because we need to adapt to the ever-changing circumstances. And this, of course, has to do with Revolution 4 or the fourth revolution. So we need to have certain tools to enable decision makers to take decisions very fast. Maybe a week would cause us problems. In my institute, we conduct a study on promoting transformative industries in Egypt in line with the fourth revolution, and we want to identify the sectors in order to be competitive. Thank you.
Of course, we need the mechanisms to use, because when we read the report, we feel sad, and then we do nothing, and next year the same thing happens, and we do not, when we stand still. Well, the problem is that we have labor force with qualified people and everything, but in general, the labor force in Egypt, with respect to competitiveness, it is that they are unemployable. So the question is now whether you have is not whether you have a labor force or not, but is how to qualify this labor force and how to let them acquire skills. The report has included the fourth industrial revolution in the indicators, and this is our next challenge. Is the labor force capable of adopting this fourth industrial revolution or not? Is there a committee? I hate the word committee. Is there a council? Is there a group that is going to work on this? Forget about the tablet and these things. Technology is a target in itself, not a mechanism, is not a tool. Yes, exactly. Tahsin said that education is like an air and water. So this is a strategy to educate all the people. So I want a second Tahsin to implement and take tangible steps and tells me how to eradicate the current educational system. Because reforming the current education system is in vain. We need to like destroy the current institutions and build the new ones. How to do this, we have to discuss. Dr. Khaled? I'm not going to add a lot with respect to entrepreneurship. What we have seen is actually different. The entrepreneurship has developed a lot in the past 3 years, so I do not know why this is not reflected in this report. I think that in 2016 there was no venture capital. Now we have more than $120 million that are available to the venture capital. There was no initiative from the central bank. Now we have it. Of the 5% and the 7%. So I think the report is deformed with respect to that sector that has developed a lot. Innovation, I do not know how they assess this or measure this. This is pure financial. The innovation that has improved in Egypt is due to the SGDF, that I'm one of its board members, the Science and Technology Development Fund. It funds the researches with 300 or 400 million EGP, and this is since the days of Dr. Ahmed Nazif. And thus, the Cairo University is now ranking among the 50 universities. So there are publications and innovations that have increased in the last 3 years because this fund was like reactivated. So I do not want to say that everything is good, but there are positive aspects. This is undoubtedly. And we have to increase investment in these things. There are so many points that we might cover, but I'm going to select one thing to focus on, which is training and vocational education, especially this with the skill set that are required for the fourth industrial revolution. As I've said at the beginning, things are moving very fast and we are moving very slowly and the gap is increasing. So that's why we have to follow the steps, because shortly, because of the fourth industrial revolution, we might find out that there's so many employments that are replaced by machines in other countries. So unemployment is going to increase and we are going to have a bigger problem. Thank you. Is this the responsibility of the Ministry of Manpower? Microphone, please. I think, in my opinion, I think that we need a task force with the knowledgeable people with the Industrial Revolution and under auspices of the Prime Minister. I know that the Prime Minister has so many things to cover, but I think that this is one of the most dangerous things that we need to tackle. Undoubtedly, our privilege has to do with human resources. And undoubtedly, and it's about quality and not quantity. So we should not be happy that we are so many, but we have to care for the quality. This point is understood by the Prime Minister. And we are seriously considering having something like a council for human resources, or Supreme Council for Human Resources, that gathers different entities and different experts to build capacity of human beings. So it is there, and we are considering this, but the form is still not finalized. The mechanism is still not finalized, but it is a top priority for us. And this, of course, not going to be separated from education and health. There are so many challenges that we are working on and that are going to be formulated and clear, but undoubtedly, human resources is our top priority, and we are excelling in this. Mike, please. So I think, commenting on what you have mentioned, Dr. Samir, we do not have a Ministry of Work, we have a Ministry of Manpower. And this Ministry of Labor has to have a labor economist and not labor syndicates that are affiliated to the state. This is one of the problems that we have because it's serving personal interest. The second thing mentioned by Khaled, that do the broadband and make people work, facilitate the business environment and allow people to work. When we interfere as a state in and increase bureaucracy, all people go to the informal economy and you cannot scale it up. All the efficient people and all the entrepreneurs cannot be scaled up because there are so many complicated issues. Complicating the identity of the state. Is the state is going to like help the support the private sector or be against it? The other thing, Ahmed, these advanced technologies, we can leapfrog. There is a real opportunity if we build capacities of the people and use technology that Egypt improves. We do not. It does not have to go to the business cycle that takes 100 years. So these are points that we have to consider. Egypt has a real opportunity to leapfrog for the future, including all the comments and recommendations that were mentioned here. Thank you, Tariq. I'm going to talk from a philosophical point of view. What is our competitive privilege for us as Egypt? What are the funding sources? Those who work abroad, like send us like 18 billion of dollars and so on. And the second thing, the tourism and Suez Canal. Tourism up till now, the ministry is like set aside and nobody's doing anything. The worst ministry in Egypt, the worst airport in the whole world is our airport. The worst treatment to the tourists are this that's received here in Egypt. The last thing, those who work on industry and agriculture, this is the last source that we have. We know our problems one by one. All these people can tell you what are our problems, what are these sectors. Back to this report, this shows me that all the rest of the countries, like Singapore and developed countries, are way in front of us. When I talk to the Prime Minister, I know that he is punctual and he is smart, but the team has to be selected by him. We can go and talk to any technician of any team and ask him to win the league. He's going to win it. So now the Prime Minister has to choose his own team, and then we can say who is eligible and who is not eligible so that we can hold them accountable by the end of the year. But if we are going to say sit still, we are not going to achieve anything. The education is going to serve tourism. We have to identify first our competitive privilege or advantage. I'm not going to add anything. I just want to emphasize the fact that our biggest problem is that each 3 months we have 700,000 children that are born and need, of course, services. So how we can transform this burden into productive force, this is something that we need to work on and consider education, technical training, and then employment. Allow me to comment on Dr. Samir's words. Who is going to be responsible for this? This is our suggestion when we talked about the population problem. The Council for Population is affiliated to the Ministry of Health and nothing is done there. So what we have recommended, and this applies on all the problems in Egypt, we have to have a council, a lean organization with small amount of people. Its board of directors might be the horizontal ministries and a group of experts, local experts and international experts, in addition to a technical committee with a database to translate these ideas into something tangible. This council develops policies and strategies. It's not going to implement them. It develops it. This council is going to take strategic decisions in cooperation with who? With all the ministries of the state. Includes syndicates, civil society, interacts with all these sides. He sets the rules for the game. Who deals with the university research centers and experts? He's going to cooperate with them. The KPIs of the implementation of everything is not going to be assessed by the council. It's measured by the cap mass because he's capable of doing this. So we set the KPIs and the cap mass measures this. And these have to be included in reports to be sent to the parliament. This is the thing that's going to give us governance and develop something that we call the economic council, like the one of Singapore. And I took a governance course there. And this is the thing that's going to achieve the idea. And we send this to the Prime Minister and to the President. And we hope to adopt this because this is going to achieve a paradigm shift in decision taking. I'm talking about the same idea that it's built on experience and there are other entities that are going to implement it. So thank you so much. And last word for Tarek. On the 20, we have something on Africa. And it's very important. We are going to tackle a report on governance in the African countries. It's very important for us to know it because we do not have any information on Africa and we always talk about it and reconcile with it and try to invest in it. So on the 20 in Marriott and Aida Hall, we are going to have an event. We thank all the attendees and all the speakers. I think that comments now are clear, we're courageous and we're clear and honest. And I hope that this is conveyed to the state. state has to be transparent, honest, and we have to work on the problems that we have without any shyness. Now we are the owners of the country, we are the citizens, and if we are not going to be active in its construction and in a vision of Egypt, the vision of Egypt is not limited to a group or to a sector. We all have to participate, and I think that we have encouraged this idea and we have been transparent and clear, and I think that we have to include all the players and actors and sectors of the state. Thank you so much and see you soon.